Today we're going to talk about our native support for OpenTelemetry and Prometheus for hosts and Kubernetes. We all know that OpenTelemetry and Prometheus has seen massive adoption, but has limited support with observability platforms. Typically, using these instrumentation types requires significant expertise and upfront investment. You need to gather appropriate telemetry data, establish tagging for correlation, create dashboards, and set thresholds for acceptable performance. Even when you take these measures in place, it's still challenging to correlate data across different dashboards to determine the cause of a performance issue. To make monitoring with open source instrumentation easier, New Relic is committed to providing the best-in-class OTel experience for both APM and infrastructure. And today we are launching the native support for OpenTelemetry and Prometheus instrumented hosts and Kubernetes clusters. This really simplifies instrumentation for your OpenTelemetry and Prometheus. So let's start with OTel. There are a couple of different ways that you can set up your OTel integration. So feel free to use the method that you're most familiar with. Here we're going to review the steps utilizing the New Relic host monitoring OTel collector setup example that's available in GitHub. It's a very fast and easy way to get your OTel data set up in New Relic within just a few steps. And at a high level, what we're going to do is set up the OTel collector, customize the collector configuration file, and run the collector and send data in New Relic. So let's take a look at it. As you can see here, I'm in the GitHub page. So let's start with step 1. Setting up the OTel collector. We'll be running a collector in Docker container, so your server will need to have your Docker running and your Docker Compose installed. Now let's move to step 2, filling in your OTel configuration file. The OTel configuration file is already in the sample directory with a working example. At a minimum, you need to enter your New Relic API key and choose the appropriate New Relic endpoint you want to point to. You can find the available endpoints in this New Relic OTLP endpoint document. Be sure to save your configuration file edits before moving forward. Once your configuration file is set up, it's time to run the OTel collector. In your host, go to the host monitoring directory and run the Docker Compose app command. Be sure to run it in the background so it remains active after you exit the service. And just like that, your OTel host is done. Wait a few minutes and you should see a new host in the New Relic platform. We've just finished taking a look at setting up your OTel collector and instrumenting your host data from there. We're now going to have a look at how you can set up your Prometheus data with Node Exporter. So to start, our Prometheus node exporter setup is really simple and fast, and within a few installs and configuration file changes, you'll be able to see all your host metrics alongside your APM performance in just a few steps. You'll need to have a Prometheus monitoring installed in your host, and if you haven't done so, you can download it from the Prometheus site link in this installation guide. You'll want to download the node exporter. The terminal commands are provided as well as to download it and run it. Be sure to run the node exporter in the background as a service. Before you start the Prometheus scraper, you'll need to configure your Prometheus YAML file. You'll be doing things like replacing your license key, configure either static or dynamic targets to customize elements like your scrape interval, and finally setting up the necessary configurations to detect the APM application hosted on your Linux server. Please take a look at the documentation for further details on how to set up your Prometheus YAML file. Once your configuration file is set, you can start your Prometheus scraper with the following command. And now you're all set and you can see your host data within New Relic. So we've just taken a look at how you can instrument with your OTel or Prometheus with Node Exporter. I now want to give you a little bit of an example within the New Relic platform. So this mini demo over here, we're actually filtering for Prometheus, for our Prometheus hosts that we've instrumented with our Node Exporter. You could also add your OTel hosts here and actually look at them all on the same screen. So here's a little look at the filter. I'm going to click into this particular host. And that is going to take us to our infrastructure or our host page and give us a summary of what is happening. So You can click through this host summary page and view all your metrics. You can also see here on the right-hand side, we have service maps. And these maps show your application together with your infrastructure. And so you can see specifically where there may be any issues. So I'm going to click open to see the full map. And here you can see your service map that shows that you've actually got a critical alert within this application. And if you wanted to go and have a look more, you could actually click on this and then go into the details of what is going on with your application. And here you can actually go and dive deeply. So actually starting from our host, we've now ended up on our application or APM page where you can dive into the critical alerts and vulnerabilities and really dig into where your issue may be coming from. So whether you are integrating with New Relic through our agents or open source methods, you're going to have a monitoring system that shows you a connected view of your system and give you a full view of how they are performing. So you're going to be able to troubleshoot and mitigate issues really, really quickly. So in this session, we spoke about how we natively support Otel instrumented hosts and Prometheus using Node Exporter. Next up, Miguel is going to talk about how we're natively supporting Otel for instrumented Kubernetes and share some demos on just how easy it is to get started. So take a look at the next video.